I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Yes or no? Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
I had no prior knowledge of the planned assault on Nancy Kerrigan.
I am deeply sorry for my irresponsible and selfish behavior I engaged in.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Oops, the podcast. We are here, as we always are, at our usual time. I'm Giulio Gallerati. Today, joined by, as always, the wonderful Francis Ellis. How you doing, Francis?
I'm well. Great clunky opening. We're so good
Thanks,
at those.
man. I know. I mean, you're much better at it than I am, I think. Today, we have a very special guest, very, very funny comedian, and now journalist, apparently. We'll get to that as well. And also new father, Gary Vider, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
How you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Oh,
Gary, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you, Gary. And you look at your head is almost like the third hot air balloon of that wallpaper.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, it goes right there. We make it four.
Nice.
That's adorable.
I'll just float away. Yeah, it's the baby's room. It's all we got. We got 2 bedrooms. You know, I only make $400,000 a year, so only get a 2-bedroom house. No, we're poor. We're
$400,000. I was gonna say
I wish.
It's delicious. Yeah,
I wish. I'm on unemployment. Things aren't going well.
It happens. It happens to people. I've heard.
Yeah.
So,
rough.
Gary, how old is your new child?
2 weeks. Literally 2 weeks today.
Oh my God.
I know. It's a lot of work. Do you have kids?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's such a shitty joke. I don't like that I did that.
You did it nicely.
I don't have kids. I'm a couple years away from being able to even probably entertain that conversation. That's how I feel. Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I mean, my wife and I were trying for like a couple of years, and when we were trying, I was definitely not ready. And I'm not even like saying I'm like that ready now, but I'm much more prepared than I was 2 years ago. So a few years it changes of just like your overall just being like, all right, I could do this. But I mean, it is a lot of work. I mean, like I was telling Giulio earlier, like he doesn't do anything. It's just like the responsibility, and like women are so much more comfortable doing all that, like holding him, like I'm holding him like in the beginning, and it's like his neck is just like, just swinging around. And it's like, I feel terrible, but it's like, that's like, I don't know any better. And I'm just like, and she's just like, no, you got to like pick up, like, even though I know I'm supposed to support the head, but it's like, I wasn't supporting it enough. But now it's like, now I got the hang of it. First video I have, he's like, his like neck is like, just like swinging around.
Yeah.
And, I'll edit it out so he doesn't see it when he gets older. But
nice.
Great. We have a COVID baby. Very exciting. And Francis, I don't know if you had something else further to say about this, but speaking of children, I think this is a good segue into our next topic, potentially, which I woke up this morning and it was Me Too Part 2 all over again in the midst of all this shit with comedians, with some famous comedians.
So Crystalia, is there someone else now?
Jeff Ross is getting shit too about something.
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It might be a more isolated thing. It's something about like somebody from the Boston Comedy Club, which was like before I was even doing comedy. Gary, were you doing comedy when that was around?
No, it was Comedy Village by time, right? I think
this is in New York for anybody listening.
Changed, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So whatever. So Francis, I know you had some thoughts about this.
So the big story of the day today is Wednesday, and I know we're releasing this episode on Thursday, but right now, Crystalia is like the number one trending topic on Twitter, and it is just receipt after receipt after receipt of Facebook Messenger exchanges, DM exchanges, emails. I mean, it's crazy how long some of these people have been kind of sitting on this. And one young woman broke the story open last night, basically saying that he had gone back and forth with her, maybe tried to meet up with her, and she says she refused because she had a boyfriend at the time or something. But it opened the floodgates to what looks like a huge amount of correspondence where he's trying to, quote, groom underage women to meet up with him. And I mean, it's a total shit show. It's kind of a different thing than a Me Too, but it is a Me Too because I don't know.
Power struggle in a way. Like I guess they're looking at it as like he's an older guy and he has the power and the celebrity to, to change her mind and make her do things. So like that's why it gets thrown in that category.
I guess that's exactly right. But the issue that is what makes it, what I say different, one thing that's interesting is that a lot of these women didn't, or some of them didn't even meet him.
Right.
They never crossed paths, and it was just an exchange, and I think the problem is that some of these exchanges, the women had made it clear that they were like 17 years old or younger than the age of consent. And then some people are pointing out that in the States where that happened, the age of consent is actually 17. And,
right.
It leads to this thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is what determines the age of consent in certain states? Why is it 16 in some places, 17 in others, and 18? Doesn't that seem like that should be a federal law, that there should be some universal cutoff? Like what?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Gary Vider?
Oh boy. Man. As I'm in my baby's room. Just a quick new dad question. Man, thoughts on it? I mean, I agree. I think it's got to be a federal law because now things just get dicey with like state lines of this. Like, I mean, everything should be a federal law, whatever, regardless of what it is. But yeah, if you're talking about just the age of actual consent, I mean, you're dealing with gray areas where you're like, oh, like now I'm in Florida and it's like whatever, I don't know what it is, 17. I like watch. I'm just great with the numbers. I know every state. I was gonna say, listen, if you want to go to Alabama at 16,
girls grow up a lot faster there. That's why you can cross the state line. You'll find an old soul.
Yeah, but it's like it shouldn't be so. I don't think it's confusing, but I think there becomes a confusing way of going about it. How now we're having a conversation where maybe it's one age in Florida and then it's a different age in California. So it shouldn't be the case. A guy shouldn't be from California and go to Florida to have sex with a girl who's 1 year younger and he's 35. So it's it definitely changes things, but yeah, it should be, I think, definitely across the board, like you said, the same age. What makes it any different if you're just by a state line?
Yeah, totally.
Gee, what do you think? I mean,
Well, this brings up an interesting point, just as far as like when it comes to this kind of shit, there's sort of like a de facto right or wrong situation. Mm-hmm. So like, obviously the younger the person is, it's much, much, much worse. But if the statute of limitations or whatever, not statute of limitations, like the age of consent or whatever is 16, you're still a creep, even if it's legal. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But then 17, I've seen people be like, like the whole Mark Sanchez thing, that never really worked against him. He was a quarterback who left the nightclub with a 17-year-old girl, and the age of consent in New York or New Jersey, or I guess in New Jersey where he did it was 17 or something. And I remember people not holding that against him. But it's interesting how, the repercussions are very different based on such a small difference in ages and laws and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you guys remember Courtney Stodden? Do you know who that is?
Oh, it sounds fair. Oh yeah, she dated an older guy, right?
So she was just kind of like this
like
young,
a much older guy.
Yeah, young Instagram kind of model who married one of an actor who was in The Green Mile. He was the really bad like cop or agent who, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but he was like the most evil guy in there. and she married that guy, and it was everyone made a big deal of it because she was like 16 or 17, and yet somehow it was allowed because they had gotten the permission of her parents.
Wow.
And so I don't understand exactly, what, like, and the guy she was married to was like 45 or 50, and they got divorced a couple years later. But, like, why didn't we go crazy about that story and say he was I'm not defending Chris D'Elia. I just think it's kind of a strange thing. Like, I think there should be a universal age in this country, right? Where you say, like, if you hook up with somebody below that age, it's illegal. And I also think I'd like to understand why that age is chosen. Like,
That's a great question.
what happens when you turn 18 where all of a sudden you're capable of making good sexual decisions?
Right.
And even then, dude, you see, if I see some like 40-something-year-old actor with a freshman at NYU, I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's pathetic, but it's not necessarily illegal. My theory was that we should give these kids like a driver's ed test. Kind of like, some sort of 50-question multiple choice test that would show that they are capable of making good decisions about sex. Right? Like, if you want like a Class A sex license, you need to prove that your understanding of, like, that would allow you to hook up with a guy who's 10 years older. You get special licenses. I don't know. I'm kidding when I say this, but dude, when I was 18, 20, 22, I didn't know what I was doing sexually. Like, I hadn't figured it out enough to know, like, hooking up with a 45-year-old woman was probably not a good idea.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was probably like 26 or 27 where I started, like, chilling out and making, and sleeping with people that were actually correct for me.
Yeah. I think the age, I was gonna say the age gap, that's really what it also comes down to. It's like, you can't have the bigger the age gap, the bigger the problems are going to be. So it's like, if you have a 19-year-old having sex with a 17-year-old, that could be considered wrong. I mean, pretty much, or whatever, 20-year-old, 17-year-old, but that's a better age gap than, but then it could be legal, 30 to a 17 in a different state. I guess it varies, but the bigger the age gap, the bigger the problem. So I think that should be part of the law, where maybe there's a minimal age gap depending on, what they're going with.
So I think that is part of the law in some places.
Really?
Yeah. So I think that, like, in some places, if you're within a couple of years of the person, it is not illegal. Like, if 17 is illegal, it's not if you're 19.
Oh, okay.
But again,
in some places, I think it is.
It's a state. Right. In some places it is. So it's, like, confusing, as we've proven here.
Which basically means that if you were a dumb high schooler and you got held back a year and now you're a 19-year-old senior dating a junior, you could be committing statutory rape, even though she's your girlfriend that you took to prom and you guys, doing everything right. Like, to me, that's weird. It's much better than, I guess, Chris D'Elia trying to solicit, 17-year-olds.
Yeah. Well, what I know about Chris D'Elia is, in that the girl that he, like, they had the text screenshots or, like, the DMs from Twitter, she was 16 now. Yeah. And so my issue with it isn't, like, I don't know, like, nobody knows all the details other than that, which seems like that was wrong. But outside of all the other people, are there other texts that came up or other DMs? Because that's the only one that I saw, and I saw a few people, like, then jumping on and being like, oh, he did this too. But I didn't see any other actual factual proof.
Yeah,
not that
I'll pull
anybody, but I'm just curious.
I'll pull up some of the other ones. Yeah. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
They've been, like,
because I know he was trying. Yeah, I know he was, like, trying to get nudes, and it's just like he's, like, going out of his way to DM, and it's like, sometimes I get messages from young fans, like, I'm like, thanks,
Mm-hmm.
it just that's it. It's like you got to just stay away from anybody who's a kid. That's weird. Yeah,
a great rule.
Yeah, that's not good.
There's all kinds of stuff.
How old is he?
He's like,
he's gotta be 40s now.
40,
right?
He's 40. I think he's actually 40.
But yeah, I
But
think
yeah,
he was
I
like
mean,
32 or something at least in that DM exchange with that girl that went to Arizona State.
yeah.
Or just graduated.
Damn.
There's so many. There's this one girl, Tara Faye, who talks about she met him in a hotel bar on Halloween and he got mad. I wouldn't ditch my friends for him. Went to LA and texted him and he told me I was a bitch because I wouldn't go upstairs and sleep with him. I don't know how old.
She's showing those texts?
I think she's 18 when this happened. But then there are a bunch that are like 16, 19, 17. I mean, it's all different ages of late teenagerism. But look,
I think it's a slippery slope, dude. Like if he's saying you're a bitch for not coming to my room and you're of age, that just makes him a dick. That doesn't make him a criminal.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. But then there are also ones where there's one here where he goes, this is so weird. He's talking to this girl in Colorado. And he's saying, how long are you here for? She says, I'm leaving tomorrow. Oh, no, she says, oh, I'm sad I couldn't see your show. Oh, well, how old are you anyways? He goes, 30. And she goes, a little too old for me. Let me know the next time you're here. But like, he asked her how old she was, and she said 17. And he goes, too young. And then like the conversation ended, but then he picked it back up again not long after that and tried to keep it going. Gary, you're more successful as a comedian than we are.
As a rapist.
let me ask you this, right? So this is my thought.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who is in the public eye and your goal and dream and everything on your vision board is about becoming a comedian who sells out theaters and who does late nights shows and, gets Netflix specials and achieves a huge following, massive fan base, grows their podcast, all that stuff. At some point, don't you become aware that these sorts of conversations with fans, especially if they're underage, are opening yourself up to massive problems for that would go against your goals for your career?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm not, obviously none of us are Chris D'Elia level, but his rise to fame, he's been famous for, I feel like at least, over 5 years. Mm-hmm. So just knowing how well his, career is going, it's like, you have to take into consideration everything you do is eventually going to be under a microscope. At least it's going that direction. So just do everything, you should be living your life the right way in general. But yeah, especially the way that, when you're interacting with people, to have like, proper manners and do normal things. Like don't do anything that, could, jeopardize your career. Cause especially we work so hard to have a career. Why, I would, I know I would never want to jeopardize it over something that's, you're just not really thinking ahead and doing something stupid. Which is why, like, I don't drink. I smoke pot, but I don't really drink that much. It's like, when you involve alcohol, a lot of, you make a lot of bad decisions, and that
can't help
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah. I just try not to make bad decisions. But
D'Elia is a renowned teetotaler. I mean, he doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, never has, never will, is sober as a judge. And I'll be honest with you, that feels weird to me.
Yeah, that's weird.
You know what I mean? Like when you match those things up, part of me thinks the fact that I drink and smoke makes me a little more normal. I don't know.
Right.
But
totally
I don't know. Do you guys think he'll come back from this?
We'll see. Like, it's going to be, I don't know. Like, it's going to have to be a thing where we'll see over the next few days what ends up happening, because it sounds like it could go either way. What do you think, Gary?
I think it's still too early to say. And also, people have a short-term memory, and especially with everything that's going on, who knows what will happen, once, the virus is over. I mean, what's he really working on right now anyway? It's not like he's not on a show.
Right.
He was on a show, by the way, where he did play a pedophile. Did you guys see you?
I've been hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there people were like, how can Netflix do this? It's like, I don't know. Netflix obviously didn't know.
Or he just crushed the audition.
Yeah, right.
And it was obviously the best
they're like, Chris,
choice.
we didn't even give you lines for this. Where's this coming from?
Dude, great improv, man. We're keeping that. We're keeping that take.
Yeah.
Seemed deeply personal to you.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say if it's going to ruin it. I mean, Seinfeld, Seinfeld dated that girl for like 4 years, and he met a 17-year-old in Central Park and then wound up dating her for 4 years. And Seinfeld was even older than D'Elia at the time. I think Seinfeld was like, I want to say, it might have even been like 38 when he first met that girl, and she was in high school. And he dated her, and for pretty much her whole time in college. But and she was like I think she was 17, and he like met her parents and everything, and they had a big relationship, and people just let it go. Not to say that was right, but he does get a pass. And it's kind of, but not to say, D'Elia, who I don't know his whole situation, but I guess, it goes back to every situation is a little bit different. And, and people jump on D'Elia, but who knows? I mean, who knows all the facts? Nobody does, other than him and the other people involved.
Totally. I think that the thing that's working against him potentially here is the volume of the people speaking out about it, obviously, just a bunch of people. And I guess what it's going to come down to is sorting through those things, deciding what is illegal and or unacceptable. And, we'll see the reaction, because once it starts, it all starts to crumble, as we've seen. So as far as like losing stuff in your career. So hopefully, I hope for his sake, if he didn't do anything wrong, hopefully nothing bad will happen to him. And if he did, consequences, we'll see.
Yeah.
God, I don't know. I think it's so tough. I don't think it's going to be easy for him to get network gigs anymore, at least for a long, long time. I think his fans will stick by him. He'll come back maybe the way that Louis kind of did, but
yeah, probably could still do stand-up, but yeah, if you're going on TV, that's an easy thing you're dealing with sponsors. So it's like, why would a sponsor want somebody who's like, oh, this guy has a few accusations and,
The one thing I will say that I don't like is when, people have been digging up sound bites from his podcast or from other people where he sort of made jokes about, girls that are 14, they look 25 now. And then these people are tweeting it and being like, we should have seen it coming. He left clues. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, if I went out today and accidentally hit somebody with my car in a car accident, you could go back through my internet footprint and find something about me saying, like driving fast is fun. It doesn't mean that I should have had my license revoked. You know what I mean? Like, get out of here.
Absolutely.
Dude, totally.
Well, I'm glad we put you through that as our opening segment, Gary.
Yeah.
Well, Gary is, I'm happy that we have Gary on today because he's a good pal. And he also has a very interesting kind of piece that he just put out in Sports Illustrated, which, dude, I don't know how I didn't know this about you already. I don't know if it was something you didn't talk about, or maybe we're just not as good of friends as I think. But you should check this out in Sports Illustrated. Essentially, I'm going to kind of try to sum it up quickly, and I'm going to let you kind of take it.
Yeah.
But essentially, Gary and his father created a scam where they would pretend that they worked for Sports Illustrated for Kids. Gary was the reporter. His father was the photographer. And they were granted access to all of these and it wasn't like he was just going to a Wednesday night fucking Washington Bullets game. He was going to like the Stanley Cup Finals, and he was going to see MJ at the Garden, and he was getting these interviews, and the real Sports Illustrated for Kids people couldn't even get this access. Yeah, one of the great innocent rackets I've ever heard of in my life. So if you could tell us more about that, I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like you said, but it started back in 1993. But previously, before that, my dad and I, we would go to games, and I would wait. Basically, for just like everybody else, if you wanted to get a player's autograph, you kind of wait behind like a guardrail when the players are leaving. And that's kind of like in general where it started, where I was like waiting for autographs, and, you get a couple autographs, but you don't really get much like time with the players. And I was a Sports Illustrated for Kids subscriber. So I would subscribe to the magazine, and that's how my dad. Yeah, of course, all of us
That's
were.
where
Back
we-
then.
I love that Buzz cartoon in the end. Sorry.
Yeah. And we, I would read it, and my dad then, I guess developed the idea that, if we were to actually like meet players, what we would do is, he would use me, and
I love that it was your dad who came up with it.
Yeah, exactly. I was, at 93, I was 9. So, he, would bring me to the games and, would make all the phone calls beforehand to secure press passes, letting him know that Sports Illustrated for Kids would be there. He would act as a photographer. He would go by an alias, mix up the names, every so often, but his main one was he'd go by Emmanuel Wolf, which was his first name, his first name's Manny. So we'd switch that up a little bit. And then my mother's maiden name, which was Wolf. So that's where he came up with that. And he would go and he would use that alias because he wanted us to seem as professional as possible, where he wouldn't be my father. He was just a photographer, which is also weird as we're talking about, pedophiles and everything. But
that would work today.
We should just cue in my dad just to get his take on all this stuff. But yeah, it was, and nobody was weirded out by the fact that here's a kid with an older man. But we would get to the games and we would have these press passes waiting for us. And like Giulio said, we were, it wasn't just like a Wednesday night game. We would go to games that actually meant something. And, just a general idea of like what would happen when we get to the game, if it was a basketball game, I'd be at the shoot around. I'd be, with the other reporters and stuff in the press area, which is like up in like the 400 level at the Garden. But a lot of the time, my dad, he would be on the floor taking pictures. So he'd be scouting for a good seat for me. And back in the 90s at the Garden, it's like nobody cared about, fire exits and whatnot. So it's like you could sit in certain places where you could be on the floor. You could be in like an area where you're just standing and ushers aren't going to be like, oh, move out of the way. So my dad would find me a seat, he'd be, often on the floor taking pictures, or I could be, standing in a corner where, not even being bothered or somebody telling me to get out of the way for safety or anything. But we'd watch the game, and then after the game, I'd go into the locker room and I would interview players for, whatever game I was at. Bullshit, as we know, like as a Sports Illustrated for Kids would do, they, regular questions of like, what's your favorite food? And like, what's your best advice you could give? But I was there for pictures and autographs. I didn't care about the interview, but I looked the part. I had a tape recorder. I had, a pad and a pen. And my dad, he was an avid photographer, so he loved taking pictures. So he had good camera gear, and he had a vest, so he looked the part completely. And then on top of that, he was a smooth talker. So no issues ever getting through of like somebody questioning it, anybody ever saying anything, who do you know this person at Sports Illustrated? Because we never, they actually didn't have kids reporting yet. And now I found out now after writing the article. So I wrote this article for Sports Illustrated for Kids, for Sports Illustrated, based on my fake reporting for Sports Illustrated for Kids that came out yesterday in Sports Illustrated.
We're gonna share the link in our story when this episode comes out.
Incredible.
But yeah, no, they didn't have kids reporters back then, and then didn't find out till recently that they now have kids reporting for Sports Illustrated for Kids. But nobody ever questioned that. Nobody thought to be like, oh, when's that article coming out that when the last time you were at the Garden, can we see that? It was just more like they saw me as a kid, and nobody questioned it. Nobody thought that this was a thing that we were faking, and we didn't have tickets to the game, so. I went to Rangers Stanley Cup, Game 1, Game 5, and Game 7, and I sat glass level, and I'm in the Stanley Cup video. My dad also had a glass seat, but in a different area in the arena. He had his camera sticking through the glass because it was just like a regular photographer, and I was at glass level and like watched Rangers win Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, and then after the game, I was in the Canucks and Rangers locker room. And I went to the Rangers Stanley Cup party after the game as a 10-year-old, and then
at Gracie Mansion, right?
So a few days later, the Rangers celebrated at Gracie Mansion, and we went there, and like my dad had no problem getting through security again. So like nothing was ever like too big to stop us of us going to the games or the event. But we, you know, if anything, it's like, you know, looking back, it's like I wish we did it like even more than we did it, you know, because it was flawless.
Dude,
but I played
incredible.
sports, so it's like I had school too, but my dad didn't care about school. He'd pick me up early from school. I'd leave at like noon, and it's like, you know, the game's not till 7, but it's just like scouting, like trying to figure out, like he still had to make like extra phone calls and stuff, and just getting extra equipment at, you know, different camera stores. But you know, he went the full mile for sure.
Incredible, dude. And like, so a couple of things that I found really interesting about this. First of all, dude, you looked like a character from the Mickey Mouse Club. You had the look, dude.
Yeah,
you had the perfect straight, kind of like bowl cut type of thing.
Yeah, it was an easy sell.
Like the easiest sell in the world. You just look like a straight A student, straight shooter kid.
Yeah. And my dad used that, in, you know, obviously to, you know, our advantage. And then he did it in other stuff too. It's like we go to the movies. I mean, and I'm small now, and I was always small, but, you know, back when I was 10, it's like maybe I was like 4'5". You know, this is just like like the easiest thing. So, you know, anywhere we go, you know, movie theaters, it's like my dad used me everywhere he could, so we would never have to pay. Like I'd be going under the ropes at the movie theater, and then my dad would be like, "Oh my God, my son's over there. He has our tickets." You know, it's just like, and it would be like, he would take my friends to the movie theater, and he would still make me do that just so like, you know, my dad was always looking for, you know, like we did something for somebody, they would owe us. So it's like he would take, you know, my friends to the movie theater, and then in, you know, return, he would expect their parents to do something because he took, you know, we took them, but he would never pay. You know, it was like, it was never, there's never any, my dad would never reach into his wallet whatsoever.
Brilliant.
I mean, and, you know, aside from that, he wasn't, you know, an honest person just in his regular life. He was, you know, pretty much a con artist. He like, I mean, he was a con artist. He, you know, all those businesses, he was always trying to, you know, he was getting sued constantly. He was always taking from people. He was taking people's money. He owned actually, up until we stopped talking when I was 15, but up until then he was working as for a payphone company. But it was his payphone company, but he was passing himself off as working for AT&T. So he'd have all these different locations, big locations like Costco and Toys R Us. They would have his payphones, but they were under the impression that they were working with AT&T, but it was just my dad. And AT&T, so he was faking, you know, being employed by them, which they eventually sued him. And they had like federal agents come to my house when I was about like, I'd say 12. And my dad, to make them feel bad, he asked me, and I did it. I like went down in like my like feety pajamas and like, you know, just like a t-shirt that he had from like his company and like a hat, just to like make them feel bad. And then he later in life he brought me to like a deposition while they were getting sued, just to show them to countersue them for stealing my autographs, even though they actually never stole my autographs. I had so many that he was just trying to get more out of them, because so he could use, I have a ton of stuff like Mickey Mantle autographs and like Hank Aaron and Joe DiMaggio. And he would say that, like, I mean, we had, you know, more than that. He would say like, oh, there's another Mickey Mantle. There was another Hank Aaron, just to say that AT&T stole it. And yeah, they just broke even. It was like never amounted to anything, never amounted to any like jail time. Just,
brilliant.
Yeah. But
well, brilliant, but a little sad. That definitely took a bummer of a turn. You know, it's one thing to laugh at stolen valor for Sports Illustrated for kids. AT&T is a whole nother felony ball game. I think, and you know, I'm sorry to hear that you guys stopped talking when you were 15. Had you just decided that this was not the life you wanted to live? You were going down a bad path of being the Robin to a criminal Batman. Like,
yeah, I wanted my own kid just to run the scam with, and it's like I want to be the lead. What the hell's going on here?
Give me the vest, Dad.
It was definitely like constant lying that, you know, you're dealing with. So, you know, eventually I was just like, yeah, like I don't want to do it. And plus, like, you know, when you're 15, in terms of me stopping, you know, doing that altogether, I'm 15. You know, now it becomes a little bit more difficult to do it. You start also, I mean, even though I grew up in Long Island, I knew a couple kids that would go to games, at the Garden. So I never wanted to run into anybody that I knew while I was like being reporter. I couldn't share the info with my friends. So it's the secret itself was like, all right, I did it for a while. I did it for, over 4 years. Got a lot out of it. But now I was older. But in terms of the relationship with the dad, my dad was always just constantly lying. So to be around somebody who's lying so much, it's just, it's draining, and you just don't want that.
Yeah. And I imagine it was like conflicting because to think back on, even because the scam in terms of the Sports Illustrated thing sounds like it was for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It sounds like that was his version of being like a good dad.
Good dad, yeah. So it's in a way it does, but at the same time, I think it was a combination of wanting it to be for me and us to have this moment of being father and son. But my dad also, he just wanted he wanted to be successful, but he wanted to always cut corners. So to him, the easiest way to be successful was lying and being deceitful. And that's what he was good at. He put so much effort into these lies. Like, if he would have actually used that for like some good, he could have managed to do that. But instead it was, coming up with that idea, that idea takes, I mean, I don't know if it took time, but the execution of it, it's like, you might have the idea, but coming up with the execution, that energy could be used for something better. And figuring that out. But he, that's what he focused his time on, as opposed to, coming up with an honest way to live.
Did you guys ever sell any of the autographs? Was there any gain from it for him?
No, never selling autographs. I mean, other than us having pictures and he would share the pictures because when he would share the pictures with people, he would just say that he knows people at the Garden or knows the security guards. And that was a big thing that he would do. He'd always take pictures of the security guards at the Garden because when we would go back, they know him as a familiar face. And even though he had press passes, it was just another way of, of them being on his side.
Right.
Brilliant, dude.
Yeah, it's always good to know people. And who doesn't want a picture of themselves, especially back then when, nobody, he had a nice camera, and then now you could see the security guard and then like Michael Jordan behind them. Who doesn't want that? But.
And dude, that's the funny thing. It's like this. So first of all, I'm gonna ask a question at the end of this thought, but it's funny that during the game you were sitting alone because your dad was with the other photographers courtside.
Dude, I was 10, 11, 9, 10, 11 years old. I don't know, I'd be walking around Madison Square Garden by myself. I remember this specifically. This is kind of a theme of the show, but it was the end of the first period of Game 1 of the Rangers Stanley Cup, and my dad would never give me any money to buy snacks or anything. But so I was also like, because I'm my father's son, I went up to the concession stand just to get something, and because I'm a kid, it's just like people would just buy me stuff. Just at the Garden. I remember one guy there's also a thing where it's like I wanted for the Game 1, I wanted a teddy bear, and it was $14, and I had like $7 on me, and the guy behind me was like, I'll get it for you, kid, don't worry about it. And then I got the teddy bear, and I remember just like looking over my shoulder, like this guy's gonna rape me. I remember thinking that then. I mean, never did, and I had the teddy bear, but
worked out.
But either way, it's like those were the kind of thoughts that like would go in my head. Like I was aware of stuff like that back then. Yeah. I don't know if most kids think that as like a 10-year-old that they're gonna get that could lead to a rape. But I was just around my dad, who was just constantly telling showing me that people aren't honest. But you can take from people too. So it's like you could get things out of somebody. So you could get somebody to buy you something just at a concession stand just because of the way that you look. And I would get I'd get free stuff.
Yeah. That's kid.
I was like
I
was like a chick, basically.
Yeah. Kid privilege
chick.
for
Hot
sure.
I was a hot kid.
You're one of my favorite parts of the story that you wrote that I feel like I'm so happy I'm talking to you about this now because of it.
Yeah.
So Gary interviewed Nancy Kerrigan while skating alongside her.
Yeah, and Chelsea Piers.
That's insane.
My dad picked me up from school early. I think I was in 6th grade when I did that one. picked me up from school early, found out that Nancy Kerrigan was going to be at Chelsea Piers. He made all like the proper calls, and I played ice hockey, so I had skates, and we went to Chelsea Piers, and she was skating around. She wasn't, I guess she wasn't practicing. She was already finished with the Olympics like a few years before, but I guess she would still do like ice shows. And yeah, my dad just had me skate around with her. And like, I was a good skater. So it's like, I could skate. But at the same time, then we were just like going through and like just interviews, and he would be snapping photos of me skating with her.
All right. I have a lot of questions. I mean, I have so many questions. The first one is, how much did you commit to the role of child interviewer when the whole purpose was just a quick autograph, right? Or a picture? Because those two things only take a split second. It sounds like if you're in these people's circle, you could get it very quickly. How many questions would you ask, and how much footage or recording would you get before you felt like you'd proven who you were?
Right. Well, the proof was in the beginning, because there'd be an introduction, and there'd be always a phone call, whatever is set up before. But as far as the length of an actual interview, I mean, it could not have been more than 60 seconds.
Oh,
I mean, it was so quick, but I would be spending time with them. So it would just be then just talking, not actual, not interview. My dad would make it, a thing, as much time as we could get out of somebody who is there. The Nancy Kerrigan thing was, skating around. That probably lasted I would say anywhere from, 30 minutes to an hour.
Holy shit.
Unbelievable.
I met this is one of my favorite stories, but Mario Lemieux, who was to me the greatest hockey player of all time, because I got to see him more than Wayne Gretzky. And I went to this, there was a celebrity golf tournament that was in Long Island, and I always wanted to meet Mario Lemieux. My dad, then of course wanted to meet Mario Lemieux as well. He called the hotel that Mario Lemieux was staying at, a Marriott hotel in Long Island, where all the players were staying. It was a ton of celebrities that were doing this celebrity golf tournament. And he found out Mario Lemieux's hotel room, and he called that room saying that he was his chauffeur, just to find out what time he was going to be down in the lobby that morning. Then he followed that phone call up by saying that he had under a different name, that he is a guy from Sports Illustrated for Kids, and they're going to be coming in today. Do you have any time today, possibly before like 8:30 a.m.? He just knew from what time the chauffeur now is going to be picking him up to how much time Mario Lemieux could possibly have, and he could do it before that chauffeur picks him up. He then put aside a banquet hall room in the Marriott Hotel. My dad procured an entire room for me, where I interviewed Mario Lemieux, and he did it on video camera. My dad videotaped it. I had 2 hockey cards that were laid out on a table. So when we finished the interview, which probably lasted maybe 5 minutes, I was like, Mario, would you mind like signing? He signs both hockey cards. And then my dad goes, all right, Gary, if you can just walk Mr. Lemieux out to his car. I then walked Mario Lemieux like through like the Marriott Hotel, walked him to his car, and like him and I just like chatted back and forth. My dad was just back in the hotel banquet hall. And I then like after that, I just like went back and like just met him. But that was like my experience of like meeting Mario Lemieux. And it was based off of just my dad, lying, finding out that, what time he's going to be down by saying he's his chauffeur, which he knew, I guess, that because I met Mario Lemieux the second day of that event. We went to the event the day before with the goal of meeting him. And I guess he knew that all the players were getting rides from their hotel, that they have an actual chauffeur, that's a driver that's taking them. So that's how he probably found out that that's his mode of transportation and how to figure out.
It does sound as though your dad would have been very well suited for the FBI or the CIA.
Yeah.
His reconnaissance abilities were super high tech.
Yeah, totally. And also just in general, and I've always felt good at this too, just from witnessing it as a kid, of telling when somebody's full of shit. when you're like, oh no, like that person's full of shit. Now, by being around my dad, and you're saying so many lies, and you're watching everybody eat it up, you realize how many people just eat up lies. They don't expect that somebody's lying to them.
Right.
No, so that's really where you're like, oh, you hear about that, like you don't think someone's lying to you, and so you're like, if you stop and think that whatever anybody's saying to you might not necessarily be true, and you kind of dissect it, you realize like, yeah, they're probably full of some shit.
Right.
So that's kind of, I learned that more from my dad, and you kind of see through a lot of people's bullshit. But my dad was he knew that people would believe, majority of people would believe everything that he was saying, and it's going to be pretty simple.
Right.
And I think about it now, like that was sort of the height of the business of autographs too. Cause in my head, I'm like, well, of course they believe him. He's got nothing to gain from it really. Like you know what I mean? There's not like, he's a kid. It's not a security risk. Like why not believe it? But at the time, like autographs were the shit. Like, do you remember those like magazines where you could buy autographs out of, and they came with the certified? I feel like the autographs aren't today what they once were. I don't know if that's correct or not. I know you still own a bunch of them.
It's a completely different market now. I mean, now it's like cards also like have been devalued.
Right.
It used to be huge, and maybe it will come back to an extent where you look back at like your, if you still have your card collection, like I still have it actually, but it's maybe in like, another 30 years, they actually will have some value. But yeah, as far as autographs go, that was the 90s were a huge time of getting those autographs, and they had value. But a lot of those autograph shops, I mean, I pretty much, all of them, they just closed down.
Right. Right.
But there were a lot of fake autographs too. And that's kind of what part of my dad's thing was. He wanted to show us, show people that, oh, I actually met them. Like, even if you get a certificate saying that this person like signed it, doesn't mean that they actually did.
Right.
Those things can be, you never know unless you're actually there.
Totally.
Yeah. Apparently, I've been reading that the memorabilia market has been booming in the time of COVID. There have been a number of auction records for certain sports cards and things like that. But
cards, yeah, like somebody found like a huge like a stack of like, it was like Babe Ruth. It was
I read about that.
Luke Gehrig cards, and
Wow.
maybe even like some other cards that were just like extremely valuable. But
yeah. But dude, I will say this. I was an autograph nut myself, and my dad and I used to go to a lot of Celtics games, and I considered myself pretty good at seeing the angles and knowing where to be and the right pitch of my voice to make me sound like a little kid, and
vulnerable.
Yeah. And I got some great autographs. But if you had told me this story, like maybe like 7 years ago, I don't think that I would have laughed. I think I would have been seething with jealousy. Like, I used to get so much FOMO if someone else got an autograph that, I didn't have. And your embarrassment of riches would have not been something that I could have handled until like 5 or 6 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Then the other thing I want to say is there is a real thrill in getting into a place that you're not supposed to be. In ducking a velvet rope or for me, like I've come up with elaborate ruses to gain access to elite nightclubs in the meatpacking district back in my clubbing days. And like, I've put on South African accents and said, that I was in town just for the weekend. I went to the Boom Boom Room one night, or no, it was the Electric Room under the Dream Hotel with my buddy who actually was from South Africa. And I did a South African accent, and we both went in and started talking to the band The Wanted. I don't know if you guys remember them. And like talked to them for a bit, and then we talked to Jessica Biel was there, and then Lindsay Lohan was there, and it was just like all because we put on accents and lied about who we were, and it was thrilling. It was it was like amazing to pull off that lie. So I get where your dad's coming from in a way.
Totally, dude. I'd be curious to see if any of the people that you met remember and like comment on it. And I'm like, that son of a gun got me.
Yeah, I wonder if I mean, it's got to be so. I mean, they meet so many people. Think about it, like,
Right.
Yeah.
it's just maybe they remember the event, but yeah, I don't know if it's anything other than that it could connect us.
Totally.
Did Sports Illustrated ever reach out to you? Sports Illustrated for Kids?
So sports, I guess, because the Kids is such a small like magazine now that's why it was just Sports Illustrated that reached out. So what happened was I posted a thing on Instagram initially saying this is when like the Jordan doc Last Dance was going on, about how I met him, and gave like a small snippet of kind of what my dad and I did. And then Sports Illustrated reached out to be like, to I guess kind of like fact check to see if I was like telling the truth, and like seeing what other things that I did. And then so then I just over the last 2 weeks I just wrote them this story, sending them pictures, and then they they put it through to their editor, and then just put it out yesterday.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
But yeah,
That is
very well
credit
all came
as a
from an
comedian.
Instagram post.
It's really cool, dude. Very,
Yeah.
very well written too. I was very impressed. I also really enjoyed the editor adding
The
like,
notes.
"Do not do this.
Yeah.
It will not work."
Yeah, he was saying that reporters can never ask for interviews, and I was like, I mean, like that's what I was there. I mean, ask for autographs.
You're getting cocky.
But yeah,
Well,
yeah, but yeah, I'm like,
Clearly,
listen,
he
this
doesn't
is-
have
this
any
is what I do.
children. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to ask for an autograph.
Yeah.
really awesome. Man. All right, well, check out that article, friends. I don't know if you have any other questions.
No, I think that's great. Gary, where can we find you? I know you've got some cool stuff going on.
So at Gary Vider, so on Instagram, on Twitter, and then I also have a comedy album, Vider Las Vegas, that came out, which could be purchased right off my website, GaryVider.com.
Awesome, man.
Hell yeah.
Definitely
That's
check that
Gary
out.
Vider. Yeah.
And we're going to share the links to that article, since I'm sure that after listening to this, you guys will be interested to read it. It's a nice read. It's not too long. I think you'll really enjoy it. Francis, what about you? You got anything cool
Nope,
coming up?
that's it. That was great. What a fantastically uplifting, all except for the father-son breakup. That was a wonderfully uplifting story.
Well, next time I come back on, maybe me and my dad will reconcile.
Reconcile.
So that'll be just to make things happier.
Yeah. And I wish you better luck in raising your child.
Yeah, right. Right now we're not talking just because he can't, but So.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that's Hoops the
guys.
podcast. Yeah, go ahead. Jay.
Yeah, sorry. So, Gary, enjoy fatherhood. We are Oops the Podcast. Send us your stories. Send us all of, whatever you feel like sharing with us. Send it to oopsthepodcast@gmail.com or our Instagram, Oops the Podcast. He is Francis CC Ellis on Instagram. I am not Julio. And we thank you guys for your time. That is all.